We work with beginner players all over the world, and we see so many common mistakes that they're making that's hindering their progress in the long term.
Definitely, and so here is our top 10 most common errors for beginners. So Tom, our number one common error, like 1 of 10 for beginners, is the court position.
Yeah, we see so many players, they'll watch the pros on TV, they'll see the pros in this transition zone, and they think, oh, I should do that as well. But actually, those pros are playing at a ridiculously high level. They're physically so fast and so quick that to copy the pros from TV just isn't the right approach, is it?
It's important to understand that this is at a pro level and high level a transition zone, and at a lower level this is no man's land from the service line to the second post approximately. And the reason that it's no man's land is because when players come back into this zone, they're too far back to attack and they're too far forward to defend properly, and it creates gaps on the court for them, and their opponents find it easy to hit past them or hit into those gaps, and so they lose the point. So it's important when people are starting that they understand that there is a backcourt position and there is a net position, and they don't want to get trapped in this middle zone, and we see it all the time, don't we?
And I think the other thing to understand is there is a backcourt and there's a front court, and it's understanding the formula from getting to the backcourt to getting to the front court, and not just thinking, I need to get to the net, I'm just going to rush, get there as quickly as I can. There's building blocks in a paddle point that players have to go through to get from the front to the back and also from the back to the front.
And I think it's a big error at the beginning when people come to a paddle court and they say, right, what's the objective? The objective is to get to net. Yes, it is to get to the net, but it's to get there with a risk-free way. Right, everyone can chip and charge, but then you end up getting stuck halfway in this no man's land. So it's, yes, you do need to get to the net, but be patient and choose the right ball.
And it's not all through power, which is going on to our second tip.
Yeah, and the second tip is players are hitting with too much power. They come on and it's the sound of the racket on the ball, and it's a nice whack, you know, and you feel very satisfied when you hit a smash winner. But when you watch the pros, they hit the ball incredibly fast, but actually if you watch the majority of their shots, it's about precision and control, isn't it? Like soft to the feet or soft to the corners to create that ball that they can attack. The
problem is the highlight reel, isn't it? All the players see the highlight reel, they see Tapia ripping smashes out, and they think, oh, that's how the pros play. But 90% of the time they're playing with precision and playing with control. And
at the beginning it might work for you. It might, you know, when you first come on the court with 3 mates and you smack the ball and it bounces fast off the glass, it might work at that point. But as soon as you play someone who's played even a little bit of paddle, they understand that the ball will rebound off the glass, it will put you in trouble. So from the beginning, if you can do it where you're going for control and precision above power, then that would be the way to go.
A huge part of making sure that you avoid these beginner mistakes is getting the right coaching advice early on in your journey, and that's why on our platform we give members one-to-one digital personal advice to them and their game.
What we often find is when we go around the world, it's the same in every country, every club. It's players have bad habits, and they've got those from not getting the right advice. And so we really want you to avoid picking up these bad habits so that you can continually improve your game.
Now we're talking there about players using too much power when they don't need to, and the third mistake that players make is they're not using the glass.
Yeah, you and I know this well, right? We both came from tennis, and looking back, this is one of my biggest regrets, is I spent the first 6 months hitting half volleys and volleys, avoiding the glass. And I look back now and I feel like that almost stunted my paddle growth, my paddle journey. And I wish I'd have forced myself to use the glass at the beginning, because all it is you go through a period of being uncomfortable, don't you? And then you get through that and you realise that actually you can read the rebound, and you can actually, the ball slows down off the glass. And so I highly recommend all newer players using the glass as much as you can.
And using it in matches as well, right? So a lot of players might train the glass, they might go on with a coach or a ball machine, train the glass all day long, and then they get into a match, suddenly you want to win, and you don't want to use the glass anymore because you're afraid. But it's really important to actually use the glass in those pressured moments, because that's also a big part of this, right? Is feeling confident using the glass when it matters.
Yeah, you've got to get comfortable with it. And actually now I think I'm more comfortable using the glass than hitting in front, which is really surreal when you start at the beginning hating the glass, but eventually it does become your friend.
Mistake number 4, players and coaches say this a lot. They say, make sure you watch the ball, but is that actually the case?
It's a problem that we see, like tactically with players, particularly beginner players, in that they hit the ball and then they watch. And it's a big problem with the serve, because players need to serve and come to net, and so they serve and they watch where their ball was, and then they take that extra time to come in, and then they're not in the right position. And when you say, well, what were you doing? I was like, well, I was just seeing if it went in. But you've got to hit and move. It's a big part of what the drills that we do is hitting and moving. And whether you are hitting and recovering your position, or whether you are hitting and repositioning to somewhere else in the court, you should always be hitting and moving as soon as you've hit, and not just watch the ball in a stationary position.
That leads nicely on to mistake number 5, which is all about preparation.
Yeah, and if you look at the cycle of technique, you hit the ball, and then you've got your recover, and then you've got to prepare yourself for the ball coming back over to your side. And players are, like we said, taking too long ball watching, but they're also not being fast enough or early enough with the preparation. And we're now kind of nailing down into the technique a little bit, but it's the same for the bandeja, the volleys, the glass, the double glass, the return of serve. It's often the most common error technically for players is they're too late to prepare, and then in the end it's all a great big rush to try and hit this ball because they've not been early enough taking the racket back, or they've not done a split step, or they've not really thought ahead of what shot is about to be played.
Yeah, you can never prepare too early, can you? I don't think we've ever said to anyone on our clinics, you're preparing too early. It's always players are preparing too late. So if you do prepare a little bit late, exaggerate it, prepare as early as you can, and probably you're getting that right.
Definitely.
Number 6, and this is another case of players probably watching too many highlight reels of the pros just kicking the ball out. It's understanding that there are different smashes in paddle, and it's not all about the fast one.
I think the common problem at the beginning is players smashing from everywhere. Wherever the lob goes up, wherever they are in the court, they hit an aggressive smash. And again, it might work at the beginner level, but the moment you get slightly above that, players use the glass. And so then you start to think, right, well, when I'm further back in the court, what is the objective of that smash? And this is exactly where the bandeja comes in, which is one of the overheads, in that it's a defensive overhead with the purpose of regaining the net position. And so what we don't want to do is have players smashing from everywhere as a beginner and spending the time to learn and understand the overheads, because the overheads are, I would say, probably the most technical bit of paddle, aren't they? And they're quite difficult to learn. And so the earlier you can learn about them and learn their techniques, the better, really.
Error number 7 is that players aren't communicating as much as they should do on a paddle court.
Again, if you watch the pros, you see them almost carrying out a conversation throughout the point, don't you? That they're chatting, they're talking about where their opponents are so that their partner can have the most information possible. It's like, if you're lobbed, you come back, and I am communicator. I'm telling you where they are so that you can make the right shot choice. And most players are not used to doing this. Like, it's quite unnatural at the beginning that you've got to start getting used to saying these things to your partner. And I'm not telling you what to hit, I'm telling you where they are so that you can still make the right decision.
And communicating is a skill. It's like learning the shots in paddle, it's like understanding the tactics, but a lot of players need to understand that it's a skill that you have to practice. It will feel uncomfortable at first, and when players first start communicating like they should do, they almost forget about the game because they're focusing on that communication. But again, it's just a skill. If you practice it, you will get it.
Common error number 8 is this idea, and this is definitely from tennis players, where they're switching. So you're lobbed at net and you shout switch, and I move across the back and take your ball, and then we switch sides. You never see that, or you very rarely see that in pro paddle, don't you?
No, you own your side in paddle. So if you're lobbed, you will then go back to that lob and retrieve it off the back glass. You're not going to keep switching like you would in tennis. And we mainly see that with ex-tennis players, don't we? Tennis players have come over from tennis, they're now playing paddle, and the second that ball goes up, it's those instincts that they've created through tennis, but you need to break those.
And it's partly court position as well, isn't it? That often one player gets really close and one player is further back, and that's part of the reason they do that switch. You see it a lot like in tennis, and so it's probably, if you're doing that regularly, not only do you need to learn to take your side, but you also need to to get in line with your partner when you're at the back of the court and at the front of the court. Therefore, you will also cover those gaps.
Mistake number 9 is players picking a side too early, and most of the time players want to play on the left because that seems to be the side that has all the glory and you finish all the smashes with.
I mean, we do a lot of pro-ams, right? So where it's a pro with an amateur, and sometimes we do them with, like in beginner sessions, and the amount of times that we'll go on with an amateur and they'll say, no, I'm a left court player. But if you're playing with a pro, you would have the stronger player on the left because they are the ones that are able to do that smashing. And so a huge piece of advice for new players is, just because you see your favourite player playing on that side, it doesn't necessarily mean A, you should play on that side, but also B, it's really, really valuable to practice both sides and to work out what is best for you, but also so you have an understanding of what your partner is going through on their side.
Yeah, and we talked about this with the back glass earlier, didn't we? You have to use the glass to feel comfortable, and it's the same with both sides. Sometimes players stick to one side, they only practice and play on that side, and they feel so uncomfortable on the other side, they just don't want to do it. But at the start of your paddle journey, get used to playing both sides, because in the long term, you'll benefit.
So common error number 10, and we see this a lot, don't we, at clubs, is taking advice from other players. And we've had so many players that come to our clinics or come to our sessions and said, well, my friend said this and someone else has said this and they've said this, and they end up just being confused more than anything. And it's almost like a bad game of Chinese whispers. So really our advice would be get good coaching, good professional coaching advice as early as you can, right?
Yeah, because like you say, too much advice can be overwhelming, but also what players don't realise is if you don't get the right coaching advice, it not only can stall your progress, but actually can send you back and make reverse your actual progress on the court.
And this is a little bit of a plug for our platform. I mean, on the padelschool.com, we've got all of our members, they often send in their videos. You and I are giving advice that we know is correct and we know is high quality coaching tips to them to help improve their game. And it's important that you have access to that, whether it's with a coach, through our platform, through some type of content or expert, because that is probably the best way for you to actually work on your game and improve.
Let us know down in the comments if you think we've missed any mistakes that should have been included in our list.
And up here, I'll put a link to the padelschool.com where you can go and actually we give a free trial, a 7-day free trial if you want to go and try out our platform and get our advice. And then down here, I'm going to put another video on the top tactics for someone new to the game.